Well, today's discussion, I want to talk about the Russia Ukraine conflict and how that might play out. So, there's a lot of videos out there that are talking about the collapse of the US dollar. It's imminent, it's going to come, and I really do not see that happening. And this is why. So, when you look at the two top leaders of the global GDP, it's the United States and China. And we are very closely linked at the hip with trade. Okay, we have dozens, if not hundreds, of cargo ships daily that are bringing goods to the port of Los Angeles, right? And that supports what we need domestically. Like it or not, factories are in China, and that's where the vast majority of U.S. goods are made. That's where a small business will go, in fact, to try and get their products manufactured for pennies on the dollar so they can maximize their profit here. So we have this very strong link, and it is not in the interest of China, nor is it in the United States to destroy one another, because economically they would both take a huge hit. If you could imagine all factory workers laid off in China, right? So that's not going to happen. And then you have Russia, in terms of GDP, is about 11 on the list. They are behind a number of EU countries, and India is in there as well. And they contribute very little, right? They have a lot of great resources, but they contribute very little to the global GDP. So they're not a player, okay? China plays nice with Russia because Russia has gas. They have fossil fuels. They have also very great agriculture. So Russia, in many ways, is very isolated from the rest of the world. So how is this conflict going to play out? Well, it all hinges on Kissinger's trip to China and the secret behind closed doors meeting that they had. And if I were a fly on the wall, this is kind of how I would have heard it, right? So I don't know. This is speculation. But I think that Kissinger may have told them, look, the United States and NATO are putting pressure on Russia, and we want that pressure to go nuclear, right? Or we want, if not nuclear, we want to put enough pressure on Russia that they make the mistake of invading a NATO country. Because right now, there is no viable option in this NATO proxy war on Russia, right? They're only using Ukrainian troops, but it's all NATO weaponry. So yes, it's a proxy war. So they're pushing Russia back into the corner. They're building Putin up as this big monster, and they're trying to get him to do something so foolish that it would justify a strike on Russia to eliminate their leadership. So Putin would be gone, their generals would be gone. But not on the population, because what they would do is get a puppet that is favorable to the West, that would allow greater cooperation, especially when it comes to exploiting Russian resources. So either by capping their fuel because of the green energy push and eliminating that carbon from the environment, or seizing the great agricultural ability, not only in Ukraine, but in Russia. So if it were to come to that, the United States leading the charge would strike Russia and take it out. In exchange for China not doing anything, China would sit back, watch, let it happen, because in exchange, this now turns into a division of the world, right? You can call it two spheres of influence, where you have two major powers. China would be given Taiwan. And why do I say that? Well, you have to look at Hong Kong and how that transitioned into a special, a SAR, which was the acronym doesn't come to me right now, but a special administrative region is what it was. And that's where China went into Hong Kong. They allowed Hong Kong to be Hong Kong, and slowly over time are doing the transition to a single, fall under the CCP type thing. So they've already demonstrated that can work, and they're probably in conversations saying, hey, we get Taiwan, we're not going to go in there and be heavy-handed. We're going to treat it like a SAR, and that way we don't militarily have to go in and attack our brothers, right? So I believe that is very likely, has been put on the table, and it's only a matter of time before enough pressure is being put on Russia for Russia to strike. So I don't know, tell me what you think. But I believe that is indeed, what could happen. Now, what would the world look like if that were to happen? Well, you have the petrodollar, right? A lot of people are not talking about the petrodollar. It was an agreement with OPEC to buy and sell and trade oil in US dollars, and that occurred in 1973, 74. And the entire thing about that was it established the US dollar as the world reserve currency. Okay, now you have two things going on here. You have this push to become carbon neutral. And what does that mean? Well, if you're no longer able to use oil, the petrodollar goes away. And that removes the status of the US dollar as being the world reserve currency. So that's gone completely. Okay. So if that's gone, what's going to fill that vacuum? Well, now you have the GDP of the United States, the GDP of China, and there are a whole bunch of global resources that they own. I believe China owns a little bit more than we do insofar as the rare earth minerals, but I'm not sure globally. So we could be very close there. But if they take the currency, make it digital, and base that or value that on resources, then they're able to go to a country and say, these are the resources you have, therefore that's the money that you have access to, right? And if it's a very arid or poor country, they'll get the aid. So that's how this whole thing could shape up. We would see the US dollar go away. How would that affect our economy? Fairly seamless, right? If you have an agreement between the two top GDPers, right, it would go seamlessly, because now basically you're just valuing your currency on something else instead of the petrodollar. So how would that affect our economy at home? I don't know. Okay, it might go bad. It always pays to be a prepper and stock up, but they're not going to kill the economy. They're not going to kill us, right? And the same thing in China. They're going to be okay. Their citizens will be okay, and our citizens will be okay. We will both flourish, and that'll get us closer to what the UN goal is, a one world government. So these are my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video here with my carrier. This is the Cold War sailor out.